other than ayahuasca, is there anything else that you think could help expand someone's like idea of themselves or help them like lead them down that path?
Yeah, something I want to give, and I mean, I could mention every other drug that I like. There's certainly plenty, mushrooms, MDMA, things like that. But I think giving people, a lot of people that aren't ready for that, a lot of people that don't want to do that. There's a good book called The Science of Mindfulness by Dr. Ronald Siegel, and it's one of the great courses on Audible. I recommend it to a lot of people. Many different tools for people that have no idea what the fuck mindfulness is, on where to get started, where the science backs it. So if you think it's woo-woo or think it's a little out there, like it kind of bridges the gap for the left and the right brain people. Outside of that, one of the greatest tools ever is a float tank. Like, can you sit in complete darkness with nothing coming in, without your cell phone, without social media, without keeping up with the Kardashians, without any input, without loud music? Can you just be in silence, in darkness, and float? And if you can get to quiet mind there, it's much easier. That's a trainable skill. And that's something that Ronald Siegel talks about. He's a professor at Harvard. Like, the dude's highly intelligent. You can train your brain like you would a muscle, and the ability to shift from fight or flight into rest and digest, that's trainable. So the more often you can do that, the easier it becomes in the day to day. So shit hits the fan, life comes at you as it does for everyone. If you've worked on that part of yourself, it's a lot easier to deal with that stuff. And I think the float tank it's one of the most underrated things on the planet. I mean, even it has a seat at the table among every teacher, every plant medicine, every form of meditation. Float tanks they're in a category of their own, and they have a seat at the table for that reason. Like, there's nowhere else where you can deprive yourself of all sensation. And when you do that, it's amazing what bandwidth is freed up in the brain. You know, I've gone in for creativity purposes and contemplated different things, and I've gotten a shitload of downloads on as far as different ways to problem solve, you know, thinking outside the box. I've gone in there and just focused on quiet mind, and I've had some of the deepest meditations I've ever had in my life. I've also gone in there on a little LSD and had, you know, like some of the best visionary experiences of my life, and you know, even on a microdose, just because nothing else is coming in, you know. So what gets freed up with that? There's really nothing like that. Even sitting in a dark room, you're still sitting. You're still focusing on, oh, my fucking hips are a little tight, or man, my spine doesn't feel good. I should have done more mobility.
My nose is itchy.
Yeah. But you get in there, you get in the float, like soon enough, you don't feel your hands anymore. The temperature is the same as your skin, you know, and it might be a little hot at first, but eventually it normalizes, and then boom, you're gone. You know, and that could be 30 minutes, could be 90 minutes. I've floated for 6 hours at one point. I mean, like all of it's challenging, but it gets easier the more often you do it, as with anything else. And it can be a very, very powerful tool.
You got to buy one for the gym, Mark.
30 grand. Pony up. Let's
got
go.
it.
I'm coming back.
The floating for 6 hours, I'd imagine that's when you took the LSD.
Those mushrooms that night.
Oh, there you go. Knew there's some sort of performance enhancing drug in there.
It's still, I mean, there's been times where I've just felt full and I had to get out. You know, like I even on a 90-minute float at 75-ish minutes, I was out, and I just showered, and I sat and just reviewed everything that I got, because, you know, with the enhancement of LSD, like time doesn't really matter at that point. You know, like in however long I was in there,
you were in there for 4 days, bro.
any intention that I had going in it came back tenfold. You know, I got everything I wanted and needed and more. And I think in those experiences, it wasn't necessary to stay in the additional time.
What's kind of the weirdest thing that's ever happened from, you know, doing some of these psychedelic drugs and these various forms of meditation and stuff? Like, you ever like just get done with it and just start crying, or?
Yeah, but that wouldn't be weird. That's just a release, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know,
just like uncontrollable emotion or something that's.
Yeah, I mean, you could take that anywhere. What's the weirdest thing?
Well, not to necessarily be weird, but I guess the question is, have some of these things made you super emotional and like dug really deep into something that you maybe just had no idea was even there?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, in a lot of the first ceremonies, I worked through childhood stuff with ayahuasca, and, you know, being out in Costa Rica recently, my 25th ceremony, and I've done a lot of other plant medicine experiences with psilocybin that have been really transformative. I was feeling kind of tight, and I had the healers work on my neck physically, and so physical healing was a part of that. And as I went for my second cup, I brought in maybe we'll work on some of the mental emotional healing, and if there's anything left from childhood, we can work through that. And I didn't sleep for 1 minute that night. I stayed up the whole night, extremely nauseated. It was very hard physically, and for sure one of the most challenging nights of my life, reliving a lot of the shit that I went through. And that in the end was incredibly healing because it gave me space to process it, but it still blew me away. Like, I've now done 26 times, and there was still more to go. So revisiting that, it sounds like, why the fuck would you ever want to do that? But in that experience, I was able to pull out of that with gratitude, with a new lens of, okay, I'm still affected by some of this stuff. And that's creating different patterns in the way I respond to my son and the different ways that I respond to my wife and how I am with my parents. If I'm short or I don't want to hear it, like rather than just starting fresh, and having a fresh lens that's not altered through my own shit and baggage. How can I just be fresh and be new and be the best version of myself for my family that I've created now and my family that I grew up with.
So it's called a ceremony probably because it's somewhat ritualistic, but it's really like a treatment almost.
Yeah, I mean, we see this now even with MDMA. Like you can take MDMA in the club and dance and have an amazing time, or you can use it like MAPS is doing with PTSD, and it is a treatment. And the crazy thing is you only need 3 treatments in their protocol, and they're healing some serious drug-resistant people that have post-traumatic stress. Lifelong, or
things like
decades long.
Rape and things like that, right? Like really brutal things. Yeah.
Military guys, people who can't really be in public, a year after the fact are they're okay now, and then that just goes against the entire model of our healthcare system. The fact that they're not given a prescription and told to go home with it and take one a day. Like, no, you come in once every 3 months, we're going to give you a dose and you're going to have assisted therapy throughout the process and after and in between. And a year later, you're going to be good. It's pretty remarkable.
Mushrooms decriminalized in Colorado, right? And
now in Oaktown,
in Oakland. Yeah, is that why is that why you're here in NorCal?
That's why I'm back.
What do you think of that?
I think that's really, really important. And that's not to say this should be a free for all. And that's something like conservative people will often say like, well, what the fuck? I don't want some kid going to Walgreens to grab ecstasy. And it's like, that'll never be the case. That's not what MAPS is pushing for. But for people to have the opportunity to have access to these things and for therapists to have that in their toolkit, not for everyone, but for the people where they know it's going to be applicable and that it can help. They didn't decriminalize meth. They decriminalized shit that actually can help people, right? And when you think about this, like I think the initiative that helped move that was legalize nature. And it's like you guys know with Kratom and here in Cali with cannabis, like sure, I know a lot of people that just smoke themselves into a stupor each day and they don't get shit done. It's like dude on the couch with the beanie, living with his mom still. It's not hurting anyone. That's what he wants to fucking do. So be it, right? Can you die on psychedelics? Probably not from the psychedelic, but yeah, people jump out of fucking windows and do stupid shit. So it isn't to say like, yeah, you can go down to the corner store and pick up a bag of mushrooms. That's not it. But should you go to jail for possessing that and doing it in the comfort of your own home? No. If you break the law while you're on it, you try to get behind the wheel, you hurt somebody, yeah, you're going to be punished for that still. But this idea that you shouldn't be allowed to responsibly use these things it's bananas, that is criminal, that people go to jail for possession of things like that. And so I think that is a move in the right direction. And I think it's really important, especially, they didn't just do mushrooms. It was, I think most cactus like peyote, wachuma or San Pedro, ayahuasca, a lot of things are on that bill in Oakland. So they took it a step further actually than Denver did. And I think that's really cool to see that.
Time to make a trip, Andrew.
I'm down.
We're going together.
Yeah.
But you've said this multiple times. People need to know when they're ready. So this is going to sound super broad, but if somebody does want to try some of this stuff, how can they know they're ready to give it a shot?
So there is a term for that, and they say there's a calling, right? And the calling is you hear about it, maybe you read about it, you have a friend that does it, and you might think, oh, I want to try that.
Kind of similar to the same calling I got for steroids, probably. You need to be stronger.
My friends are talking about Trenbolone quite a bit. I think I'm ready. I'm going to make a trip to Mexico. It's going down.
I'm going to go to that Trenbolone ceremony.
Yeah, the Trenbolone ceremony. Yeah, I think it's not something that you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to do it. I mean, it's something that lasts. And that's the way is you check in, and it's not done on a whim. The beauty of going all the way to the Amazon is it's not fucking easy to get there. There's a flight, you're taking off work. A lot of times you have a 10-day trip just to get there and do the medicine for the week, because you have to have time in front of the trip and time at the end of the trip. Oftentimes it's 2 days travel. It was 2 days travel even in Costa Rica. We flew in, we stayed in San Jose overnight. Then we had a drive to a ferry boat ride, and then an additional drive to get to the healing center. And we're there for a week. We drive, we ferry, and we drive to the hotel. We stay overnight, and then we fly home the next day. So, I mean, having that space around 10 days, there's a financial piece there that goes into that commitment. B, you have to take time away from your family, time away from your job or whatever commitments you have. But if you're able to do that, rather than just go to the homie down the street who's doing ceremonies out of his house, like, it's a lot easier to unplug and be involved in that experience. It's a lot harder when you do things stateside and you got to show up for work on Monday, right? There's very less time to integrate and process what's happened. But in terms of that, knowing when you're ready, doing your research, listening to podcasts like this, myself, Aubrey, Rogan, reading a bit about it. The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide is a great book for people that are trying to get their feet wet in the shallow end, maybe not with Aya, but microdosing something like LSD or psilocybin. I think there's great tips and tools. Dr. Jim Fadiman wrote that book. I think it's incredible. And then if you feel really called to that and you have a reason to be there, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a microdose or a macro dose in the Amazon, it's having an intention, having a reason to go. Like, what stuff do I want to work on while I'm here? And you may not have any trauma to work through. It might just be, I need direction in life. I want to sort out what I'm going to do now, and I think that, certainly like, that was something I brought to the table after fighting. And then one of those answers was podcasting. It was health and wellness. It was being a part of something that makes me feel good and helps me live a little bit better each day than I did previously.
Do you think that, if I don't know, just a person that has their life together, got a good job, family, or, everything's going real positive, would someone like that benefit from taking, an ayahuasca trip or something like that? Or is it just really like a certain demographic of people that
No doubt. And I think that's an important piece. And that's something Rick Doblin, who's the head of MAPS, is working on with MDMA therapy, is that there's not, I forget what it is, how they're wording it to the FDA, but when this becomes legal for assisted guided sessions, they don't want to have it only be for people with PTSD, or only be for people. They want it to be for people who are healthy, of good conscience, good mind, good body, who just want a different perspective, and they want to be put through this and have the ability to level up in any way, shape, or form. And that'll first be done with MDMA. I think they're estimating in 2022 that'll be completely legal throughout the U.S. Supervised, of course, with the right people. But with these other things, obviously you can go to the Amazon right now. It is just about, do you have a reason to be there, and whatever your intention is. And life can be fucking perfect. You don't have to come from a horrific childhood, and that wasn't me either. My childhood wasn't horrific. There was just, I had some shit like most people do, and I think, even outside of that, as I've worked through a lot of that, the downloads I get that are work related or direction related or family related, like, how do I be a better fucking dad? I mean, that's never going to not be at the forefront of what I'm working on. And at every stage of my children's lives, as they change and develop, because I'm doing it for the first time, as we all are, as our parents were, I'm going to have new things to tackle, new obstacles, and I'm going to need new perspective on that. And so having those tools periodically to work with, I think it's incredible. It's made me a better dad. It's made me a better partner to my wife. And I couldn't ask for much more when it comes to that.